Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at what I think is the build for the best team in the game right now, Fused Fighters. So we have a really good Fused Fighters lineup. Why it's such a good team is because I don't have a Mega Shenron, so I can't run his team. But on a serious note, the reason it's such a good team is because we have two alternating leads. So we can use the tech Goku Vegeta from the 10th anniversary as a potential lead, which means you can run this team under them, or you can run this team under the strength Goku and Vegeta Blue Boys. What makes the Blue Boys such good characters is that they have a 250% HP lead for this team. They cover Fused Fighters and Final Trump Card. So that's a big marketplace to work with when you're dealing with a leader skill that encompasses so many powerful units. It also has a very good lineup. Limited in terms of really top tier units, but really good in terms of flexibility. You have AGL Gogeta, who's a great burst short mode damage tank. You have the scaling power of the 10th year anniversaries. You have a hybrid tank scaler like the Strength Blue Boys. You have a pure scaler who has the ability to tank a lot of stuff in the initial turn in the form of the physical Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta. And then you also have an array of options with which to replace any of these guys with. You have the God Boys, you have the Int SS4 Gogeta, who I think, by the way, is a really well done EZA. So you really just kind of got like the whole package when it comes to, fundamentally good working teams. So for me, there's enough selection and variety here that you can run an incredibly powerful team. On top of that as well, if you're running the Strength Blue Boys, you do have the Future option, which is always helpful. Running Future units like Zamasu and Goku Black, although it's not really suggested, not on a non-full Future team. And also, obviously, if you run the 10th anniversary LRs, you have access to some alternative characters, looking at your kind of like tech Giant Ape Vegetas because of the Pure Saiyans lead, etc. We have some interesting alternatives. Strength Gogeta, I think, is a very good alternative. A lot of people, I think, underrate him a lot. I think he's very good. We then also have, of course, the Gotenks as well. Also, for me, an incredibly good character that has a really good presence that you can use for short form content. But really, it comes down to the combination of having one of the best short form units in the form of AGL Gogeta, alongside some really good versatile characters. The 10th anniversary LRs have the ability to switch between stacking scaling damage dealers to being incredibly good versatile support characters. And the physical SS4s have incredibly high, very rapid scaling. The transformation into Gogeta is incredibly defensively secure, even to this day, even with minimal stacking. You've got things like the Veku active skip. You've got things like being able to tank against bosses that disable evasion with the Blue Boys. You've got counters from all the SS4 units. There's just a lot that makes this team really good. And even if you incorporate a great unit like Super EZA Physical Vegito in your team, that's also fine. He's floating support, can tank, can dodge attacks, counters. So you have good alternatives for situations where you don't maybe want to run the unit I'm running. Don't like to run AGL Goku and Vegeta? Not convinced by them? That's fine. I'm not here to convince you. But you can run Physical Vegito, more than fine. Strength Gogeta, more than fine. Floating support. You know what I mean? The God Boys, you can run Tech God Boys if you feel like it. They're also a great alternative. So it really just comes down to the fact that this team has incredible versatility. The ability for the units to share positions, move across positions. At certain points, either of them can act as tanks, depending on the situation, depending on what you put together. So I think for me, it's the greatest strength of this team. With content now, with the way it works, you are more inclined to look at things as a versatile layout with your team. Yes, there are still slot 1 tanks. Like, yes, you probably want to have the Blue Boys if, they can evade. Yes, you probably want to have AGL Gogeta, especially early on, very powerful. But there's also other alternative options. Trunks and Vegeta for scaling. you want to prep this team more for Festival of Battles, putting them on the team, for example, instead of having int Gogeta, who I'll be using in the short form content, can help. They'll help you scale, they'll help you do really good stuff. So it's a very, very impressive team. So let's talk about the rotations, because what is a great team without incredibly good rotations? And when it comes down to this team, what I find to be really good with it, like I said, is that versatility. You have the ability to, at any given point in time, operate one of these units as tank, one of these units as floating support. For example, if I am taking on a boss and I want to make sure that I can get through to the next turn, I can always, if the boss is prone to evasion, switch in Goku Vegeta AGL and turn them into Goku form, so we have an incredibly high evasive tank. This unit will then allow the Goku Vegeta, who are also an evasion tank, to operate in the second slot, which will give us an incredibly good position. If, for example, I am letting the physical SS4s stack off rotation, because I'm planning to use their Gogeta form at another point, then either AGL Goku Vegeta or Tech Goku Vegeta or Int Gogeta or anyone like that can take their place. We can even switch a Blue Boys off rotation if we're really wanting to stack, because we're confident in the tanking ability of Gogeta. It is one of those just situations where, because of all the reversible exchange and because of all of the different various methods of stacking, defensive resistance and different scalings, we have quite a good versatility. So although there are rotations, the whole point of this team is that depending on the situation, you feel comfortable to switch a unit to a form that works better for that situation. One thing I will note though, when doing this team, is that the presence of the Saiyan Raw capability is very, 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 very crucial. So Saiyan Raw has a very big impact on how our teams work. Saiyan Raw has a huge impact on AGL Gogeta, huge impact on the SS4s, and huge impact on the Int Gogeta as well. I think what the most important thing to take note out of all of this when it comes to talking about Saiyan Raw is essentially very similar to Big Bad Bosses for extreme teams, in that it has an incredibly important connection to how the units are going to perform. Because of this, obviously, and because of the fact that Int Gogeta units can't connect, that would lead us to have the SS4s link with the AGL Gogeta. And that's probably the only thing I will say. That is probably the only structural hindrance, it feels like, to this team. Once the reversible exchange rule kicks in, I think that's the only real kind of hindrance. But it's not a big one. It's just something that's more if you're wanting to really get the best out of Gogeta, which I think you should, because I do think it's very crucial how much damage he does. If you're in a situation where you are looking at, for example, how to run your team, how to switch things out, always understand that the moment you can transform to SS4 LR Gogeta, with the physical Super Saiyan 4s, he will be tanking a lot of events more than fine. Mainly because he has such high scaling. They will already be at 1.6 million. Transforming into Gogeta, they'll be at 2 million defense. But it's also because, on top of that as well, the counters that Gogeta has. The physical LR SS4 Gogeta has counters against all types of super attacks, and a very high rate of counter as well. So it actually makes him a brilliant tank, because no one's going to get through guard and damage reduction and 2 million defense with normals. Not even right now in Dokkan. But it's the supers that he counters that really have a huge impact on his overall capabilities. So I think that's something that's very, very important to take note, because when you're kind of designing your team, how your team should be floating, working and functioning, I think consideration of links is always important, and making sure that those SS4s can reasonably be together in most content is going to be the struggle for most players. And in this case, I just think it's not that big a struggle. So I think personally it works very, very well. And I think for me it functions at a very high level. Other than that, the team's main benefit and the team's main strength is its versatility. Switching to AGL Goku to have a evasion tank, switching to Strength Vegeta to have more burst damage in the third slot as a floater, switching to Tech Vegeta if you want just a raw kind of tankier team with more support capabilities. It's all comes down to that kind of operation and having the team function on that versatile level. Depending on when you transform them, what skills you use, it'll have a big impact on your team building. So let's talk about rotation, skills, and all the characters in a little bit more detail. So firstly, let's talk about AGL SS4 Gogeta, a unit that I think ultimately, honestly, has probably some of the strangest, the strangest kind of understanding from the community that I've ever seen. A lot of people slandering a unit like SS4 Gogeta, I think, have lost their minds. SS4 Gogeta is a great unit. There's zero wrong with him. He's designed exactly how he's meant to be. Yes, there are events where 55% Gogeta, etc., certain times, at certain moments will take damage. That is fine. It's not like to say anything, but outside of super mega ultra scaling units, most units are going to take incredibly high damage if they don't have time to build up or anything. Gogeta doesn't have time to build up because Gogeta doesn't need time to build up. Gogeta is great. His links are super preferential. This is why we go with the Saiyan Raw. It's why we pair him up with the physical Super Saiyan 4s. The damage from his active is huge, but it's the defensive boost that's main priority. When you are using Gogeta to utilize him, to operate him, to have him function at a high level, you want to incorporate that active skill at the right moment. Use it to maximize damage and defense at the same time. If I know a unit's going to fire off a big super attack and it's going to occur before Gogeta gets hit, it's going to occur before he can fully realize all of his buffs, then I'm 100% going to make certain that with Gogeta, I, for example, use that active skill to prevent from taking an obscene amount of damage. In terms of his versatility, he's not really tied to any specific slot. In that sense, he's very, very good. His requirement is to have 2 GT heroes on the team, which is why at any given point in time, we do have to make sure that we have 2. It's not too hard to do, but it is something to be aware of. Other than that, he's great. Versatile, tanks fantastically, does a fantastic job, really, really good. The Super Saiyan 4s are equally as amazing. Not in terms of damage, for sure, but in terms of how impressively their kits aged for short form content. The 77% damage reduction and the guard that them and the God Boys have for turn 1 has turned out to be a godsend, because it actually allows them to tank a lot of super attacks that a lot of other units can't, because even to the current meta, 77% damage reduction and guard is still a very high amount. So that on its own makes you go like, hey, wow, this is actually really, really good. This is actually a really, really, really good unit. Then couple that with the fact that what they get once they turn into Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, like I've mentioned before, the counters, the nullification of supers, the active skill, creating good damage and interrupting. They interrupt on their super, their tankiness. It's just a very, very, very good unit. And the thing that I think is most important about them, and with the God Boys, who obviously is not in my current top tier build, but is definitely are definitely good units. They don't, because of how their first turn works, because of the additional bonus super attacks, because of the way they stack defense, because of how everything works, they don't need a huge amount of time to get to an acceptable level of defense. They don't need 18 turns. I've transformed them numerous times immediately upon availability in super hard content, and they've been more than fine. They've been absolutely 100% fine. And that is because of the scalability of them. It is the rate at which those additional stacks occur, the additional defense occurs. It is really, really potent. First turn, using them to tank some big, meaty super and then they stack and stack and stack, and then they immediately kind of come back into the fold after stacking, and you can then use them as a tank, I think is incredibly good. So a very, very powerful duo. When it comes to the blue boys are as equally good. What makes the blue boys really, really solid is that if you use them as a first slot tank, so let's say you use them as a first slot tank while you're just letting everyone build up, on their super, they provide defense the rest of rotation. So 60% defense boost if Goku fires off his super, because of how tanky they can be based on super class units, and because of their evasion, they make a great tank. And when you consider all those factors, being a first slot unit, for them, it's not a problem. Yes, because there's no guard or anything like that, they're not necessarily like Rose, who with Big Bad Bosses, Rainbow Rose, all that sort of stuff, he can tank tons of stuff. They're more of a good tank for normals and an evasive tank for supers type of unit. But they're really, really, really good. I mean, they're really good at doing that. And the 60% defensive boost is huge. When you look at units like Tech Vegeta and AGL Goku and Vegeta, that 60% defensive boost is massive for them. It is absolutely massive for them. It completely changes their spectrum of usability. It adds another extra level of defense that when they stack, when they have their initial boosts, the damage reduction boost for Tech Goku Vegeta, the guard for the AGL Goku and Vegeta, it makes them able to tank supers. No item tanking 7 million supers, they can do it because of that defensive boost. Couple it with the fact that they also have attack lowering in the Goku form. It's all just really, really good stuff. So you have all of that. Then if the boss disables evasion, you just use Goku's active skill, and that gives you the ability to now act as the same level of great tank against those bosses. So for me, the Goku side is great. The Vegeta side is a little bit more debatable. I think it gets a lot of flack. I think mainly because the support that they gave it was very, very specific. I think if the support that was given was a bit more universal, not just Trunks units or units with Trunks in the name, I think Vegeta would get a lot more respect. But he's still great. If you put him in the third slot, absolutely huge damage dealer. And his active skill does give a defensive boost upon the parent and child, which is very, very helpful. So when you look at the Goku and Vegeta, and this is going to be the unit that everyone says, oh, how can you have them in the team? They're not good, blah, blah, blah. They are good. They are one of the best utility units in the game. They have some of the best active skills in the game by a country mile. And when you look at how they service the team, to say that they're not one of the best units in the game, I think is disrespectful to the concept of the unit. I think a lot of people see them as something they're not. For me, they're a pure utility support unit, and it sounds so strange. I think when you look at them, like the concept of Super Gogeta being a support unit, but that's what they are. Goku is a super great evasive tank. Switching to Goku form gives you the Vacu active, which is a Ghost Usher, one of the best and most powerful abilities in the game. Being able to Ghost Usher is absolutely insanely crucial. And in short form content, when you're playing an event that's supposed to last 5 or 6 turns, 7 turns at most, to skip one of those turns, to skip 20% of the boss's like abilities, rotation and everything, and no boss has the ability to counter that, is really, really strong. And then you look at Gogeta, who can be an emergency tank provided that you get enough rainbow orbs. You look at the fact that he has nullification of negative effects for the rotation, and you look on top of that he foresees super attacks, and you look on top of that he gives all allies 54% attack and defense in those moments, creates rainbow key spheres. I mean, the guy is nuts. So I use them often as a floating support character generally, or I use them as obviously alternatively an evasive tank. But for me, they are without a doubt one of the best units in the game. And the way they function for this team is perfect. To have a floating evasion tank, to have a floating support, to have forcing or super attacks, to have all these things is really, really, really good. And yeah, honestly, I think personally for me, definitely one of my top units that I really enjoy using. Now, if we take a look at Vegeta, Goku and Vegeta, I think personally for me, they've probably aged a little bit worse. Yeah, Goku, I think. So, firstly, I want to preface this by saying they're still fantastic. Goku is incredibly good. Goku has 90% damage reduction in second and third slot for the first 3 turns. So Goku has no problems tanking after his super. And generally speaking, with his guard and everything, and the defense boost from units like the Blue Boys, he's fine for pretty much any event. Those first 3 turns, short form content, and he does good damage. He also provides support, which is incredibly good. Vegeta, on the other hand, honestly, also really solid. I think what I now find myself doing a lot with them is I find myself, if I don't need the damage of Vegito and I don't need the taunt, so the effective ghost dasher that he provides through taunting, I tend to actually turn into Vegeta, use his active to give me the boost and to give me the guard, and then I switch back to Goku just to have that additional guard mechanic to provide the additional attack and defense to keep damage up, but also just make ourselves a bit more defensively solid. Or I just stay in Vegeta form if I'm looking for that support. The reason for this is Vegito is great, so I'm not having a go at Vegito. I love Vegito, but there are just 1 or 2 fights where you actually don't want to use his taunt or his damage, because Vegito has 6% damage reduction and guard, which is tremendously good. But nowadays, with bosses doing, for example, 12 million crit supers, there is the ability for Vegito to die, which I know sounds incredibly surprising, but actually is something that can happen. And you have to just be careful that you don't set yourself up for failure. Like, this is a great example, and I'm showing it on screen on purpose. It's not to ever go at Vegeta. I love the unit. But Vegito, you can see here, I'm using his taunt, setting myself up to have everything ready to go. And he's going to die. I know this unit's about to super. Vegito cannot handle that super because of the crit, and he's going to be defeated. And that's my own fault. Why I would taunt in this situation when I have AGO Gogeta, his active, I've got everything else under the sun, physical Gogeta, that can actually deal with the boss. This is, I think, the problem. People go and they say, wow, Vegeta can't tank. Vegeta can tank almost every boss. It's just 1 or 2 in very specific situations where he can't. This is a fully built up Gotenks. So, yeah,